are stronger, stronger than you thought.
I am so excited to be here with you today. Welcome to simplywoman.tv. My name is Crystal Andrus Morissette. I'm your host. And over the next 30 minutes, we're talking with Asha Frost, the international best-selling author of You Are the Medicine. We're going to talk about a lot today. We're going to talk about how to ground into your own lineage, maybe even meet your own ancestral guides, a lot about self-care, your journey, returning to your own ways, cleansing, purifying, surrendering, trusting, releasing doubt, fear, disconnection, insecurity. And we'd love for you to join us for this conversation. If you're live on Facebook, share your name and where you're from in the chat. Feel free to ask any questions along the way and share your thoughts with us. Now, let me properly introduce Asha. Asha Frost is an Indigenous Medicine Woman. She's the best-selling author, as I said, and a member of the Chippewas of Nawash First Nation. She is from the Crane Clan, the totem of leadership. She believes in holding space from vision and heart. She's an energy healer. I've gone to Asha a few times, and powerful healing sessions I've had with Asha. She's a homeopath. She's a mentor. Asha's actually been to one of my retreats before too, but Asha now is guiding thousands and thousands of people through profound and lasting transformation, impacted obviously by generational trauma and colonization. Asha has been on a lifelong journey of reclamation. Some of these words, I'm just learning them. A lupus diagnosis, yes, sent her on the path of studying and practicing a multitude of energy medicine modalities. She's blended her life experience with her innate gifts and the wisdom of her ancestors. She loves sharing her medicine in powerful ways through ceremonies, teaching, speaking events, and through this work. She loves seeing people reclaim their roots, find their healing wisdom, and rise into their power. Asha, I just had a Sasha conversation. Asha, how are you? I'm hearing a tiny little buzz all of a sudden that wasn't here before. Do you hear that? There we go. It's the ancestors. They're coming through the energy. They're like, we're coming through today. Spirit's with us. Asha, thanks for being here. I love you. I'm so excited for you. I know it's been a whirlwind year, and I'm just so honored and grateful that you're able to be on my show with me.
Thanks for having me. It's so nice to see you. I love being with you.
Oh, I love being with you, Asha. I just thought right out of the gate, because we have 30 minutes and there's so much to cover and there's so much wisdom that you have. But I thought, I remember back, we were just talking about social media, and I remember, what was it, 4 years ago now, when you wrote the letter. The letter
3 years ago.
3 years ago. And I remember the letter, and the letter started to go viral. And it started to go. And what was that? First of all, what was that like for you? First, the feeling of just writing that letter and putting it out there, the Dear White Woman letter.
Well, I had a blog and nobody ever really read it. I mean, some people read it, but it wasn't like
I read it.
It was this famous blog like before that letter went out. And I was really inspired to write this letter because I'd been processing things in it for the last 10 years and wondering, I needed an outlet. So I thought, I'll just write this blog post, and it's Dear White Woman Who Wants to Be Like Me, because there was a lot of stuff coming up around appropriation and about the harm of that and how I was feeling about that. So I put it into words and I put it on my blog, and I put it as a post on social media, not thinking, because I did that with all my blogs, not thinking it was going to really do anything, just like, okay, this couple people will read this. And it did. It went viral. I think it was shared over 20,000 times, maybe more now.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I don't know. It caused like a blast into the universe that I wasn't expecting necessarily. And it was before everything else kind of blasted up around George Floyd. It was before 2020. So it was kind of like before everything else sort of came into conversation.
Yeah. And it was divine timing. I mean, everything is, but it really seemed like it just came at a time when, listen, I don't mean to say this, but it's like if you could write this book at any point, but the fact that you'd written it before It was like this was already percolating in your being, in your body, and you talk about that. Before we get into a million questions that I have, would you be comfortable reading the Dear White Woman letter? And yeah, I might cry. I've got my Kleenex. It's okay. And I'm going to just check over on Facebook as you're reading it, any comments that are coming in.
Okay. I have to take a deep breath when I read this too. I haven't read it out loud in a while.
Yeah,
Dear
let's
White
all take a deep breath.
Dear white woman who wants to be like me, I get it. You see the moccasins and the beaded earrings, the cheekbones and the drum, the smudge bowl and the feathers. It all looks so exotic, something that you want to be a part of, something you want to consume. And you think that maybe if you borrow a few of these things, you too can connect to the earth more deeply, to the ancestral wisdom, to the spirit world. I've heard it time and time again. I wish I was you. I would love to be native. You're so lucky. I was native in a past life. I really want a status card. I think I have native blood. Can you tell me how to get one? Again and again, I've heard these things from you, and my heart pains, and my throat closes, and my tears get swallowed. Do you know what you're really saying? Do you really know what you're asking for? I love my heritage. I'm proud of who I am. Even when I wear my beaded earrings and people whisper behind my back asking, who does she think she is? Even when I walk in my mucklucks and teenagers shout Indian calls at me. Even when I'm discriminated against when I enter the hospital. I love who I am. I'm a proud Anishinaabe Ojibwe woman, and it's taken me 42 years to get here. So, dear white woman, I want to ask you this. I know that you would take on the dream catchers and the powwows. I know that you would take on the headdress and the sage. I know that you would take on the wisdom and the beauty. But do you want the rest of it? Truly? Would you like to experience people asking to collaborate with you so they can receive grants intended for Indigenous creators for their work? Would you like to be seen and treated as less than when you have pneumonia and are in desperate need of hospital care? Asked by medical professionals how much alcohol you've had to drink when all you need is medicine. Would you like to have big dreams and wonder every single day whether you'll be able to rise in this current system? Would you like to feel physically ill every time you read comments section and see the horrible views society has about your people? Would you like to shake violently afterward and wonder if you and your children are safe in this world? Would you take on a painful chronic illness and later wonder if part of the reason you have it is due to the oppression and pain your people have experienced? Would you take on all of this too? I look around at a world that has reduced me to a costume, a world that has romanticized me into a character, a world that takes the teaching of my people and uses them without any acknowledgement or an invitation for us to join them on their stage. This is the world we live in. And so, dear white woman who wants to be like me, are you willing to take all of it on or just the pretty parts? Are you willing to take on the trauma or just the wisdom? Are you willing to deal with the intergenerational trauma of residential schools and the alcohol and the suicide and the violence and the genocide? Are you willing to carry all of that in your cells, your blood, your tissues, ready to do the work every single day to heal this so you can make sure your children don't carry it as you have? Dear white woman who wants to be like me, do you? Or can you be like you and reconnect to your own sacred medicines, your own beautiful ancestry, your own power, presence, and brilliance? I see you wanting to. I see you aspiring to. I see you reconnecting. Can you be like you as I reclaim and remember me? And then we can finally walk in right relation to each other.
So beautiful, so powerful. Wow, thank you. Thank you for reading that. I know you've only done it 2 other times, so I feel extremely honored, or however many. I know I get to hear it right from you is really powerful. I'm very grateful. I was saying before when we went live, I said, it's interesting because I never knew really where I came from. And I had my DNA done, and I can't explain how powerful it was for me to finally know that's where I come from. That's where my ancestors are. And when I was reading your book, because I had just had that done, there was such a connect for me to understand that. And when I read through your book, there's so much, and I want to talk about how do we read your book? You Are the Medicine, the 13 Moons of the Indigenous Wisdom ancestral connection, animal spirit guidance. How do you want us white people to read your book and receive the blessings and the medicine of your book and your people? How do we do that?
Yeah, I love that question. I wrote this book as an activation or an invitation so that the words would activate a remembering within you, because I really believe if you're attracted to our medicine ways, there's something in your lineage, there's something in your ancestry, there's something in in your history, I think, that has also connected you to spirit and the earth. So to me, the words were infused with that intention of remembering. And you can do this through connecting, first of all, to that, like to maybe the grief that you're not connected to your ancestry, and starting from that place and seeing why that is. Doing some of that unraveling and work to reconnect to those teachings or those cultural aspects that you feel are lost or they've been taken away from you. It feels like a parallel journey in a way of me reclaiming mine as you reclaim yours. I think I'm still reclaiming and doing that work. So I offered this as a way in, sort of as like, when you read this, what comes forward for you? I believe, of course, that we all carry this wisdom, this ability to connect to spirit. We've lost that through the patriarchy, colonialism,
Yep.
all the systems. We've lost that connection, and we've all lost that connection. So I believe it starts there. This is a book of reconnection. And my medicine teachings are simply a way in. And it's obviously not, I mean, I'm not you are the medicine police or the smudge police or the animal spirit police. So I don't know what you're going to do with this, but I trust that you'll use it with reverence, and you'll use it to awaken some of your own wisdom that is waiting in your bones to be expressed. That was my intention in how to use the book. But of course, as I let it out in the world, I have no control over how it's being used.
Have you gotten feedback on how it's being used? What are you hearing? What are you hearing people say to you?
My favorite feedback are folks who are coming back and saying, I feel seen for the first time. I've lost my connection to my own heritage and lineage, and I feel like this has brought me back to a feeling like I belong, this feeling of belonging.
Yes, it
Yeah,
did.
and then I shared before we popped on here is like, I wanted it. I always feel when tears pop into our eyes, it's like a remembering, like we're remembering our connection to spirit, our connection to heart. So I wanted people to feel that, like have that, like, when people say to me, oh my gosh, I read the first chapter, I started crying. That was sort of what I intended, because
I cry on almost every page. Almost every page I read a line and then like, and there is also, which I think we white women have to talk about, we have to talk about, how do we talk about this? How do we join the conversation, be a part of the conversation? And you talk about your son, both your boys, and your eldest when he was born, and then he's at school and he's doing a talk and he's going to give a talk on racism. Will you share that story, that experience, what that opened up for you, what it did for you when that occurred?
Yes, I mean, I don't think my children have experienced that in any way that they know of, right? But he had been hearing me just speak on the things I've been speaking about, and even myself unlearning and doing the work, and attending many workshops and learning, just doing that learning and unlearning. And I think just that
I
by
love
us.
that you just said unlearning. That's what a lot of us have to do now, is we have to unlearn all of the stuff that we learned that not only is false, like it's inaccurate, it's lies, that we've brought on and somehow believe. So there's something we're going to go back to that, but there's something we white women that we are like, we have to unlearn a lot of things, and we have to do the work. It's our work to do now.
Yes. And that's a really about that story. It was actually, he wanted to he started writing a book about it. And when I was writing mine, so it was just so
Of course, he's
like,
going to write a book like his mom's writing a book.
so that was so sweet, even though he doesn't really like writing. So it was very interesting. But yeah, I think that was just by osmosis, being in that connection. And I think doing that work is so vital I don't want my children to have experienced like what I've experienced. And I think as white women take on that responsibility, that creates this beautiful world for the 7 generations and our children to live in a world that is more equitable. That is my hope of my book as well, that it
But
opens up.
it is the only way to do it. I stand for the show as Simply Woman, for women, by women, about women. That doesn't make it anti-man. That doesn't make it, and we already, and I'm not going to get pulled into that, but we already have one comment that is, and I could be reading it wrong, but white women again with question marks. There hasn't been anywhere near enough of white women. When we go back and we think about, and gosh, it must just be so painful for you. It just must be so painful for you every time there's another story and there's more news and there's more. I think the conversation has to turn now where it's like, no, you've been the one that's had the pain. So if we have to have a tiny bit of humility and unlearning for us to create that space, because anything, I feel this is it's so important. And in a very honest moment, I think a lot of white women are scared to get it wrong. So they don't do anything at all because they don't know how are we going to have this conversation, and it brings me to, you talked about George Floyd and then Black Lives Matter. And all of a sudden there was all of these books coming out about white fragility and it was like, but it really was a conversation that we need to have, because we see the pain, when the residential school, when that whole came up with all of the children, that must have just, when I say, and I hate that I have to be like you, me, because I want us to be one. But I think what's so important that, and I've learned from you and I've learned from other women, we are one, but we have our own past and we have to learn where we came from. And that means learning a lot of truths that we might really not want to learn because it makes us face where we've come from and what we've done. So this is a big healing opportunity. And that's what I see that you're offering is a really beautiful healing opportunity.
It is. And it really is an invitation. And I know there's a lot of fragility. I experience it every day. I have to sit with that and see it being thrown my way and people not seeing. And with the residential school trauma, I'd been talking about that for years before the graves were uncovered, right? So Indigenous people weren't shocked. Everybody in Canada was like, I'm so shocked. How could this happen? This is our history. We should know that this happened.
Right.
This should have been taught in school. This is the trauma Indigenous people are carrying. People say, get over it. Get over it. It happened in the past. No, we're still carrying this. You don't even know about it. How can we get over something that nobody's even acknowledging and talking about? Those are the types of things that even, I know people are upset about this conversation because you've lived in a very privileged little bubble that you haven't had to deal with that. And people say, well, it's so hard and there's so much to do and it's so hard to be a white woman in business nowadays. Well, imagine living it every single day. When I hear
being an Indigenous woman in business.
Right. Exactly. And just being seen, and that is something that is something I speak about a lot is I have been in business for 20 years. I have worked my ass off, to get where I'm at. And I started to see the inequity of all of these white women just rising. And I didn't even want to admit to myself it was because I was Indigenous. And I started to think maybe I take that off of my bio. Maybe I just erase that part of me and just assimilate like I have my entire life because I'm never going to get where I want to get being Indigenous. So it's been a really big journey to honor those parts and believe that being connected to myself is okay.
Yeah, it's necessary.
Yes.
It's necessary for all of us. I have this one little spot that it's just interesting that you just were talking about business. So I have my boss lady tabs, my white woman boss lady tabs. And on page 200, you say, started my business before social media appeared in our world. But when I moved my medicine there, I started receiving these private messages daily. Listen, we all do. I do too. I get all these, but there was a different feeling for you because of your history And because of what you've been through and your people have been through. But you would get a different type of message. I get ones like, I got a new job. Guess how much money I'm making? Would get ones like, I had a dream last night about a fox. What does it mean? Or I need a homeopathic remedy for this sore toe. What's the name of my spirit guide? And he said, I felt so frustrated and resentful, wondering why people thought they had unlimited access to my energy and my medicine. With it, I'm so thankful I paid you. Holy shit. I'm just so thankful. I was like, can I come to your house, please? I'll pay you whatever it takes. But even that, desperate, I would march around my house muttering, how do they not know how much time and energy this takes me? Why don't they honor my medicine? After months of throwing daily pity parties, I realized it was up to me to show people where my boundaries were. And as soon as I remember you had those structured, I would go to your website to book something, and you had these 15-minute or what was it that you?
15-minute, $45. Just if you had like any sort of question like that, that would take me 15 minutes. And then all the requests stopped happening as soon as I put that out there, because he wasn't want to pay for that.
Yes. What do you think? What did that tell you? And let's talk about being in business. I know that's a really important part of the conversation you want to have today, being in business as an Indigenous woman.
Yeah, well, I thought I had to, like, that's another thing. You just feel like you have to say yes to everyone. You don't have the privilege of saying no. Even in the publishing world, it's like I have some Indigenous author friends now, thank goodness. And we talk about this, like, we just don't have the privilege to set those boundaries because it takes us so much to even get to a place. And then you just have to be grateful. You have to be grateful. And I know that's something that's shared across all women in that way, but as an Indigenous woman, it's even more, it's even deeper. And I just feel like that was the thing, is like, I'm not going to get anywhere unless I hand over my medicine for free, unless I basically sell myself short and don't have any boundaries. That's where I'm going to be finally seen. So it's taken a lot of years to see my value, and to put a stop to that. There's just no, like, yeah, it's not okay.
So let's talk about, I know you were diagnosed with lupus at was it 17? You were diagnosed with lupus. And I know you can't help but wonder, is this like your body taking on all of the pain? My mind just went blank there for a minute, but let's go back to the business part and you talking about being an author, because one of the things that I have every woman I've talked about across the board, and this is what I think I want to just bring it back to white woman, because I really didn't get, Asha, I really didn't. I just thought, oh, we all have to work harder to be proven twice as good. We all have to do more than we have. We all have to, nobody says no, but there's and it's so important for us to realize, but it's all deeply layered and leveled. So I never even knew my blonde hair and blue eyes opened. I just thought, well, I've been sexually abused and I've been raped and we're all in this together. But there's a whole other level now that I'm so aware of that we have to keep talking about. Asha, what can we do together to change the conversation in a way where we're not like, look at how hard my words are coming out. This is a person who never stops talking. How do we, it's like, I just so want to get it right. That's what it is. I just so want to honor you and get it right. And I think maybe that's okay for people to see. I think maybe it's okay for people to see, oh, I don't want to get this wrong because I honor you and I respect you. But even when you said, thank God there's other Indigenous women that are writing books so that you have someone. What do you talk about? Are you comfortable? What is the conversation?
Oh my
so we know.
Yes.
Are you comfortable?
It's about the race. Lots of times it's about racism. It's about tokenism. How oftentimes we're just chosen to do things, but then people won't really do the work. Like I had this experience where I was asked to do this speaking engagement, and all I asked them to do was to find an Indigenous organization. They wanted me to do that work and hand them the name of somebody, and all I asked them to do was to Google something. It would have taken them 10 seconds. And then they said I offended them. So it's things like that of me actually.
That's the fragility. So there's an example of that's what we have to see, is that's our fragility. I'm offended that the minute someone is in that position where they're taking it personally, that's fragility. That's what we have to understand. The minute somebody says, so let's go back to that. So you're doing a speaking talk and you talk about tokenism. Can you explain that? So anyone that doesn't understand what that means, let's talk about that.
So tokenism would be.
I really wanted to talk about the book. I really wanted to talk about the raspberry moon. I wanted to talk about the moon right now because we're in the corn moon. I just had the corn moon.
So tokenism is when an organization or something, like they're looking to check a box, right? So they're like, we'll just choose any Indigenous person. And that's something that's so harmful because you're not really seeing me. You're seeing, again, you're reducing me to a costume or a character and just saying, we're going to check a box and say, we've done this work for Indigenous, for reconciliation, right? We've done this work. We'll just use anybody and we're just going to like take you to just, it's like a dehumanizing thing. Like we're not seeing you as a human. We're just gonna take you and use you.
Yeah, it's no different than, it's different, but it's no different than I often used to feel like I would be invited to do these big events, like, and I don't want to say the name, but big events with big male speakers, Dr. Phil and Bill Clinton. And I always felt like I was just the token woman. I was the one woman they would fill in, and then they would say, well, we have a white woman on stage. Well, we have a woman on stage. But that's no degree to what you're talking about, what you're experiencing. So now it's gotten to be where everyone's wanting to be woke. Everyone's trying to wake up and everyone's wanting to be like, so I feel like, again, I feel so much of your book is just so much love. I don't want anyone to feel like the conversation is like, oh, am I going to read this book and then we got to do work? It's like, well, there's a way that you do it though, that bridges it, that allows, I think, and that's why it's become an international bestseller, because we want to gobble it up. And I think when we start to realize, like, we as women, we're more alike than we realize, as women. And I think we're all starting to be, I think the world is happening where we're starting to, I think it's women that are going to heal the world. I think it's women that are prepared to have these conversations, not all, but we're starting to have these conversations now where we're looking more at ourselves and looking more at our history. What can we do to bridge? I know you said your Rainbow Bridge is your name. Mm-hmm. What's the next step for us that you would wish for, that you would hope for, that you would want?
I think it all starts whenever I have a conversation that's difficult. I just ask for people to start with the energy of compassion for themselves. Because I think when we don't start there, then the defensiveness comes up, because we're self-blaming and self-shaming, and then we feel bad about ourselves. So then we
do, not you. This is the way you're doing it. It's like, no, we feel bad. We do feel bad. Asha, we do feel bad because there is an energy that people are like, gosh, how did our ancestors do that? Well, was it my ancestors? Well, I wouldn't have done that. Like, I wouldn't have done it if I were around back then. Well, so it's that we do feel bad. We do feel ashamed. We do feel guilty, and we don't want to feel those feelings.
Right. So can you sit with compassion in that state of discomfort? Just like actually start with compassion, lean back, listen.
Yeah.
Listen, right. Listen to the information that's coming your way in this co-creation. And then if you can listen with compassion for yourself and you're not going to beat yourself up or shame yourself, you won't shut down. And I think then we can open our hearts to each other. And I always feel like I've done so many healing circles. That's been like my medicine way of sharing things. If we could live in a circle or sit in a circle and be in circle, heart to heart, spirit to spirit, the conversations would be so different than what we see online happening. So if you can just kind of envision that we're in circle, we're sharing heart to heart, I think that things would shift. That's my vision, but I'm not sure if everybody's ready to do that.
Well, no, they're not, because I'll tell you something. Over on my Facebook page, I just walked over and there's been 700 comments that have been deleted by my moderator, by somebody who's writing something. And but I think we as women, we are being called to have those conversations, because finally the underbelly has been exposed. It's always been there. This has always been there. You've lived it your whole life. African-American people have lived their whole life. It's just finally being exposed. And everybody else is like, well, that was the past. It's like, no, it has to be exposed to be healed. And so bravo to you. I can only imagine the courage that it took and that it takes for you every day to keep showing up and keep having the conversation, because this can't be easy for you. I mean, it can't be easy for you. It must be fulfilling in some way, but it can't be easy at times.
It's a big responsibility, definitely, that I feel to share this. And it's for all the Indigenous people across Turtle Island. I really hope that even if I change one heart or open one mind, then I've done my job.
Yeah, thank you so much, Asha. I can't believe 30 minutes has gone. Like, that's just crazy to think 30 minutes has gone that fast. I just want to thank you so much. If you haven't gotten a copy of the book, let me tell you, the first chapter is Dear White Woman. The rest of the book is, and listen, it's infused throughout, is so much love, so much wisdom, so much celebration, and just it keeps reminding you and it gives you many prompts to help you reconnect with your own ancestors, to reconnect with your own past, your mother, your great-grandmother, your great-great-grandmother, your great-great-great-grandmother, and all the women who came before you. There's such a healing. And so grab the book. It's so important. Have the conversations at your dinner table with your kids, with your parents, the older generation. We really need to have that. I can't wait for the dinosaurs to die off. Asha, I just want to give you the last 30 seconds here. Anything you want to share before we say au revoir, goodbye, all that stuff?
Oh goodness, I'm just grateful. I'm just ending that conversation with gratitude for you and for anybody who was here that wanted to open their hearts. I'm grateful to be in community with you.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. We're out of time today, but I want to thank you, Asha, for being here today. And if you like the show and you want to watch some more of our amazing episodes, we've just gotten started with simplywoman.tv. You want to head over to it's not actually www, it's just the HTTPS. It's just simplywoman.tv. Join our mailing list. Plus, we'd love your help with the best show topics. Maybe we'll even invite you to be one of our guest experts. Again, you want to head over to simplywoman.tv to stay in the loop. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Asha. It's been my pleasure. Crystal Andrus Morissette. Take care. I'll see you next week for another episode of simplywoman.tv. We are for women, by women, and about women. Bye for now.
You are stronger, stronger